Submission day arrived. Students gathered in Guac's massive presentation hall, where each would demonstrate their solution to Professor Zalthep's assignment. The room buzzed with nervous energy as aliens from dozens of worlds prepared to show their work. Ji-ho sat near the back, his single line of code saved on a small data chip. His stomach felt tight. Would his solution work when tested on the university's main system? Would anyone believe he had actually solved the problem? Or would he be accused of cheating? "You look sick," Dae-hyun whispered, sitting down beside him. "Did you finish the assignment?" Ji-ho nodded. "I think so, but it's different." Different how? Before Ji-ho could answer, Professor Zalthep entered the hall. The room fell silent as he moved to the central platform. "Today, you will present your solutions to the multidimensional quantum tracking problem," Zalthep announced. "I will evaluate each submission for accuracy, efficiency, and elegance. We begin with the most accomplished students." As expected, Zith Kor was called first. The tall, silver-skinned alien moved confidently to the presentation terminal. "My solution requires 6,142 lines of code," Zith Kor announced proudly. "This is 31% more efficient than the current department record." Murmurs of appreciation spread through the room. Zith Kor loaded his program and ran the test simulation. On the large display screen, complex quantum particles moved across multiple dimensions, their paths perfectly tracked by Zith Kor's algorithm. "Excellent," Professor Zalthep said when the demonstration finished. "A new benchmark for efficiency." One by one, other students presented their solutions. Most had created programs between 7,000 and 9,000 lines of code. Each received polite approval from Zalthep, though none matched Zith Kor's efficiency. As the presentations continued, Ji-ho noticed a human woman enter the hall and sit near the door. She wore the uniform of a university administrator. Her name, tag read Han Sol Kong. She seemed interested in the proceedings, watching each presentation carefully. Finally, only Ji-ho remained. Professor Zalthep's three eyes focused on him. "Ah yes, our human student. I notice you haven't withdrawn from the course yet." His tone suggested he expected Ji-ho to do so at any moment. "Do you have a solution to present, or shall we move on?" Ji-ho stood, his legs feeling weak. "I have a solution, Professor." Zalthep made a gesture that the translator didn't catch, but several alien students laughed. "Then please, enlighten us with Earth's approach to quantum computation." Ji-ho walked to the terminal, aware of every eye in the room watching him. He inserted his data chip and accessed his file. "How many lines of code does your solution require?" Zalthep asked, his tone mocking. "Should we prepare for a lengthy presentation?" Ji-ho took a deep breath. "1 line." The room went completely silent. Then came the sounds of alien laughter and untranslatable exclamations of disbelief. "1 line?" Zalthep's voice rose higher than usual. "Impossible. Perhaps you misunderstood the assignment." "I understood it," Ji-ho said quietly. "May I demonstrate?" "By all means." Zalthep gestured to the terminal. "Show us this miracle." Ji-ho loaded his program, a single line of code that combined Earth's functional programming approach with alien quantum syntax. The line filled the screen, complex but undeniably singular. When he executed the program, nothing happened for several seconds. Then the terminal screen went dark. "It appears your solution has crashed our system," Zalthep said, not bothering to hide his satisfaction, as expected. But then, the screen lit up again. The simulation began running, showing quantum particles moving across dimensions, just as in previous demonstrations. The tracking was perfect, perhaps even more precise than Zith Kor's solution. Ji-ho had included a performance meter in his submission. As the simulation ran, the meter showed that his program was using less than 1% of the processing power required by other solutions. The room remained silent as the demonstration concluded. Even Professor Zalthep seemed at a loss for words. Finally, he found his voice. "This is unexpected. What method did you use?" Jiho explained as simply as he could. "I treated the entire multidimensional system as a single entangled state. Then I used recursive functions to track all possible quantum paths simultaneously. That approach would require," Zalthep began, "millions of lines of code using standard methods," Jiho agreed. "But Earth's early programmers developed ways to handle complex problems with minimal code because our early computers had strict limitations. We couldn't rely on raw processing power, so we had to be more creative." Zithkor stood up. "This must be a trick. The problem cannot be solved so simply." "It's not a trick," Jiho said. "It's just a different way of thinking." Professor Zalthep moved closer to the terminal, all three eyes studying Jiho's code intently. "This syntax combines multiple computational paradigms," he observed. "Some I don't recognize. I adapted concepts from Earth's historical programming, languages, particularly something called functional programming. The approach treats computation as mathematical functions rather than step-by-step instructions." The administrator, Hansol, had moved closer during the demonstration. Now she spoke up. "Professor Zalthep, what is your evaluation of this solution?" Zalthep seemed torn between his prejudice and his scientific integrity. Finally, he answered, "The solution appears valid, and if so, it represents a significant improvement over existing methods." The word improvement clearly cost him effort to say. News of Jiho's unusual solution spread quickly through the hall. Students began discussing it in multiple languages, their translators struggling to keep up with the technical terms. After class, Hansol approached Jiho. "That was impressive. Our dean will want to hear about this." "The dean? Why?" "New computational approaches are valuable to the university, especially ones that challenge established methods." She smiled. "And it's not every day someone solves Professor Zalthep's impossible assignment with a single line of code." That evening, Jiho received a message from his younger brother Junseo, back on Earth. He had sent it days ago, and it had finally arrived through the interstellar communication network. "How's space school, big brother? Are you showing those aliens what humans can do?" Jiho smiled as he recorded his reply. "I think I just did." Later that night, there was a knock at his door. Jiho opened it to find Professor Zalthep standing in the hallway, his gray skin glowing faintly in the dim light. "May I come in?" the professor asked, his tone unusually polite. Jiho stepped aside, surprised. "Of course." Zalthep entered and stood awkwardly in the center of the room. "Your solution today was unexpected." "Thank you," Jiho said, unsure if this was a compliment. "The Dean of Computational Sciences has requested that you give a presentation to the academic board tomorrow." Zalthep's middle eye fixed on Jiho. "They wish to understand your methodology." "I'll be happy to explain it." Zalthep moved toward the door, then paused. "Human approaches to problems are different than I had believed. Perhaps there is value in computational diversity I had not considered." It wasn't quite an apology, but coming from Zalthep, it was remarkable. After the professor left, Dae-hyun burst into the room, his face excited. "Is it true? The whole university is talking about the human who solved Zalthep's impossible problem. With one line of code!" Jiho nodded, still processing what had happened. "You've done something important," Dae-hyun said. "Not just for yourself, but for all humans here." Jiho looked at his simple code one more time before shutting down his terminal. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but for tonight, he had proven that being human wasn't a disadvantage after all. 1 week into the semester, Jiho found himself in Guok's enormous quantum computing lab. The room hummed with energy as students worked at their stations. Some alien species connected directly to the computers through neural links. Others used specialized interfaces designed for their unique biology. Jiho sat at his human-adapted terminal, staring at the complex problem Professor Zalthep had assigned. The task seemed impossible. Create an algorithm that could track quantum particles across multiple dimensions simultaneously, accounting for every possible state change. 10,000 lines of code, Jiho muttered to himself. Minimum. A tall, thin alien with silver skin approached Jiho's station. This was Zith Kor, the top student in the class and Professor Zalthep's favorite. Human, Zith Kor said, his translator making his voice sound metallic. I am curious. Will you actually attempt this assignment, or will you withdraw like the others? Jiho looked up. I'm not withdrawing. Interesting. My calculations suggest your species would need at least 3 million lines of code to solve this problem. Zith Kor's mouth formed what might have been a smile. I've already completed 2,000 lines. How many have you written? None yet, Jiho admitted. I'm still planning my approach. Zith Kor made a clicking sound. Planning will not help when the task exceeds your biological capabilities. But I admire your persistence, however futile. After Zith Kor left, Jiho sighed and returned to studying the problem. He had spent days translating the requirements into terms he could understand. The assignment itself wasn't the issue. It was the approach. That evening, a message appeared on Jiho's communication device. It was from someone named Yunji Cho, a human PhD student he hadn't met yet. Heard about Zalthep's assignment. Meet me at the Earth Embassy library section after dinner? Jiho found the library easily enough. The Earth Embassy maintained a small collection of books and data from home, mostly for nostalgic humans, far from Earth. A woman with round glasses and a serious expression waved him over. Jiho? I'm Yunji. I was in Zalthep's class 3 years ago. Did you solve his impossible assignment? Jiho asked hopefully. No, Yunji admitted. I switched programs after 2 weeks. But I've been watching how he treats human students. It's not right. She pulled out an old data tablet. This contains programming archives from Earth, dating back to the early days of computing. Most aliens see these as primitive curiosities, but there's something valuable here. Jiho took the tablet. What am I looking for? Earth's early programmers had to solve complex problems with very limited computing power. They developed techniques that aliens never needed because alien worlds had abundant energy and processing capacity from early in their development. Jiho scrolled through the archives. There were programming languages he recognized from history classes: Python, Haskell, Lisp, Ruby. Pay special attention to functional programming, Yunji suggested, particularly the concept of recursion and lambda calculus. There's something about Zalthep's problem that reminds me of challenges our ancestors solved centuries ago. For the next few days, Jiho split his time between trying to understand the alien approaches to the problem and studying Earth's programming history. While other students built massive code structures, Jiho searched for patterns. In the lab, he noticed something interesting. The alien students were treating each dimensional state as a separate problem, building huge sections of code for each possible interaction. Their approach was comprehensive but inefficient. They're using brute force, Jiho realized. Because they can. That night, he found something in the archives about recursive functions, how early Earth programmers had used elegant mathematical patterns to solve seemingly complex problems with minimal code. The next morning, Jiho arrived at class to find Professor Zalthep checking on each student's progress. When he reached Jiho's station, all 3 of his eyes narrowed. No code yet, human? We are 1 week into the project. I'm still working on my approach, Professor, Jiho explained. Approach? Zalthep made a dismissive gesture. The approach is clear. Every serious computational species uses the same method. Maybe there's a different way? There is not. Zalthep's voice became colder. This is why humans struggle with advanced computation. You waste time looking for shortcuts when the path is already known. After Zalthep moved on, Jiho noticed another human watching him from across the lab. The man nodded at Jiho and walked. Over. I'm Taemin Lee, Advanced Xenophysics, he introduced himself. I heard about your standoff with Zalthep. News travels fast, Jiho said. Humans stick together here. Taemin smiled. Don't let him convince you that the alien way is the only way. Our brains evolve differently. Sometimes that's an advantage. Did you have Zalthep as a professor? No, but I had Professor Glix, who's just as bad. I solved his impossible fluid dynamics problem by applying Earth's chaos theory. The solution was 10 pages instead of 100. This gave Jiho new hope. He wasn't alone in his struggle, and maybe his human perspective really could offer a different solution. That evening, while most students continued building their massive code structures, Jiho researched quantum entanglement theory from Earth scientists. He found papers on a mathematical approach that humans had developed in the 2060s, but never fully implemented due to hardware limitations. The hardware limitations don't exist here, Jiho realized. He could use Earth's theoretical approach with alien quantum hardware. Days passed. While Zithkor and other students proudly announced their progress, 5,000 lines, 7,000 lines, Jiho remained quiet about his work. His approach was taking shape, but he wasn't ready to share it. When he showed Rena his initial calculations, she looked shocked. This is brilliant, Jiho. You're treating the entire multidimensional system as a single entangled state. No one here thinks that way. Will it work? He asked. I don't know, but it's exactly the kind of solution a human would find. She smiled. We've always had to think differently. With 1 week left before the deadline, Jiho's confidence grew. While others built mammoth code structures, he refined a single elegant formula, a recursive function that could handle the entire system at once. The night before the deadline, Jiho dreamed of his grandfather, who had taught him to code when he was just a child. The best code is no code, his grandfather had said. If you can solve a problem with less, that's not lazy. That's brilliant. Jiho woke with a start, a final insight clear in his mind. He rushed to his terminal and made one last adjustment to his formula. What had been 20 lines of code collapsed into just one. It can't be this simple, he whispered. But when he ran the simulation, the results were perfect. His single line of code processed the entire quantum system, tracking every dimensional state change simultaneously. Jiho stared at his screen, hardly believing what he had done. Tomorrow was the submission deadline, and he had solved Professor Zalthep's impossible assignment with a single line of code. The question now was, would anyone believe it was possible? Jiho Kim stared out the viewport as the transport ship slowed its approach to the Galactic University of Advanced Computing. The massive structure floated in the asteroid belt of Proxima Centauri, its gleaming towers and domes catching the light of the nearby star. His heart beat faster. After years of study and a competitive selection process, he was only the third human ever accepted into GWOC's Advanced Algorithm Design program. First time off-world? Asked a blue-skinned Meldorian sitting across from him. Jiho nodded, his throat dry. First time meeting aliens, too. The Meldorian's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. Well, to me, you're the alien. Jiho managed a smile. The humor helped calm his nerves. When the ship docked, Jiho grabbed his single bag. Earth's ambassador had warned him to pack light. Most of what humans need isn't what other species use, she had said. The university will provide adaptations. The entry hall buzzed with activity. Students from a dozen worlds moved about. Some floating, others crawling along specialized paths. Signs flashed in multiple languages, including Standard Earth English. Jiho followed the directions to the human accommodations section. "You must be Jiho," a friendly voice called out. A young man with short black hair waved from an open doorway. "I'm Daehyun Park, your roommate. I'm in xenolinguistics." Jiho felt relief wash over him. Having another human nearby would help. "How long have you been here?" Jiho asked, setting down his bag. 3 months. I came early for language immersion." Daehyun pointed to a small device on his temple. "These translators. Help? But professors expect us to learn at least basic communication without them." Daehyun showed Jiho around their living space. It was small but comfortable, with special adjustments for human biology. The food synthesizer had been programmed with Earth recipes, and the gravity was set to Earth normal. "Classes start tomorrow," Daehyun said. "Who's your main professor?" "Someone called Zalthep? For advanced quantum algorithm design." Daehyun's smile faded. "Zalthep? Oh, what's wrong?" "He's not fond of humans, or any primitive species, as he calls us." Jiho's stomach tightened. "Great. Just be prepared. He's brilliant but harsh." The next morning, Jiho found the classroom. Unlike Earth universities, Guac's teaching spaces were designed for multiple species. Some students sat in chairs, others floated in special tanks, and a few clung to the ceiling. Professor Zalthep entered. He moved on 6 thin legs, his gray skin shimmering with bioluminescent patterns. His large head housed 3 eyes that swept across the room, pausing briefly on Jiho. "Welcome to Advanced Quantum Algorithm Design." Zalthep's voice was translated into multiple languages simultaneously. "This course will challenge the brightest minds from across the galaxy." His gaze returned to Jiho. "I see we have a human this semester. How interesting. Your species only recently discovered quantum computing, I believe?" Jiho straightened in his seat. "We've been working with quantum systems for over a century, Professor." "A century." Zalthep made a sound that the translator didn't catch, but the alien students laughed. "My species had quantum computing before your people invented the wheel." Jiho's face burned, but he stayed quiet. "Now," Zalthep continued, "let's see what you all know. Display your solutions to this basic problem." A complex equation appeared in the air before each student. Jiho stared at it. The notation was unlike anything he'd seen, full of symbols his translator couldn't process. He looked around. Other students were already manipulating the symbols, solving parts of the equation. Jiho tried to apply Earth quantum math principles, but it was like trying to read a book in the dark. After 10 minutes, Zalthep checked each student's work. When he reached Jiho, he paused. "Nothing? Not even an attempt? I don't recognize this." "Notation system," Jiho admitted. "It's the standard galactic quantum notation. Did you not prepare before coming here?" The preparation materials didn't include this specific notation. Zalthep's middle eye narrowed. Human universities should better prepare their students. Or perhaps they can't. He moved on. By the end of class, Jiho felt crushed. He couldn't follow half of what was taught, and Zalthep had repeatedly pointed out his confusion to the class. As he left, a human woman approached him. She looked to be in her late 20s with short hair and kind eyes. "You must be Jiho. I'm Rena Song, teaching assistant in engineering. I saw you in Zalthep's class." "That obvious, huh? I went through the same thing 3 years ago. I was one of the first humans here." She handed him a small data device. "This has translation guides for alien math notations to human formats. It helped me." "Thanks," Jiho said, relief in his voice. "Does Zalthep ever get easier on humans?" Rena shook her head. "No. He's driven every human student out of his program so far. He believes our brains are inadequately evolved for advanced quantum thinking." "Great. Don't let him win. We need to show them what humans can do." That night, Jiho studied until his eyes burned. The translation guide helped, but the concepts themselves were challenging. Alien mathematics approached problems from fundamentally different starting points. Dae-hyun found him still studying when he returned from late classes. "You need sleep," he said, concerned. "I need to catch up," Ji-ho replied. "I looked completely stupid today." Zalthep does that to all new human students. It's his way of trying to make you quit. Ji-ho rubbed his tired eyes. Why does he hate humans so much? His species, the Vrexians, value mathematical ability above all else. They see us as barely intelligent because our math developed differently. Different doesn't mean worse, Ji-ho said. Try telling him that. The next day, Zalthep announced the semester's main project. You will design an algorithm to process the evolution of a quantum system across multiple dimensions simultaneously. He displayed a complex problem statement. Most galactic species solve this with approximately 10,000 lines of code. Expect your solutions to be equally efficient. His three eyes found Ji-ho. Human computational methods typically require millions of lines for problems of this complexity. I will be impressed if our Earth student can complete this task at all. After class, Ji-ho visited the university library. He needed to understand not just alien mathematics, but how different species approached computational problems. As he searched through the database, he found something interesting. Early Earth programming languages were included in the historical archives labeled as primitive computational curiosities. Ji-ho opened files on Earth's functional programming languages. Something about the problem Zalthep assigned seemed familiar, like it connected to old human programming concepts. That night, as other students began working on massive code structures, Ji-ho took a different approach. He studied how Earth programmers had solved complex problems with limited computing power. When he mentioned this to Rena during their study session, she smiled. That's exactly what helped me succeed here. Aliens developed computing with abundant resources. They never had to be efficient. But on Earth, we had to make every line of code count. Ji-ho nodded, a new idea forming. So they use brute force because they can, while we learned to be elegant because we had to, Rena finished. For the first time since arriving, Ji-ho felt a spark of hope. Maybe being human wasn't a disadvantage after all. Maybe it was his greatest strength. Ji-ho woke early the next morning. Today, he would present his solution to the Guac Academic Board, some of the brightest minds in the galaxy. His mouth felt dry as he got ready. Nervous? Dae-hyun asked, watching Ji-ho struggle with his formal university jacket. Terrified, Ji-ho admitted. What if they think I'm wrong? Or worse, what if they think I cheated? They won't. Your solution works. That's what matters in science. When Ji-ho arrived at the Grand Lecture Hall, he was surprised. To find it packed with professors, students, and visitors, word had spread fast. He spotted Rena, Yoonji, and Taemin sitting together, offering encouraging smiles. At the front of the hall sat the academic board, 12 aliens from different species, each a leader in their field. In the center was Dean Xylos, a tall Andromedan with crystalline skin that reflected light in rainbow patterns. Approach, Ji-ho Kim of Earth, Dean Xylos said, her voice musical through the translator. Ji-ho walked to the presentation area, trying to keep his hands from shaking. Professor Zalthep stood nearby, watching with all three eyes. We understand you have developed a novel approach to multidimensional quantum tracking, Dean Xylos continued. The board wishes to see this solution. Ji-ho inserted his data chip into the main terminal. His single line of code appeared on the massive screen behind him, visible to everyone in the hall. Murmurs filled the room as people saw the brevity of his solution. Even some board members leaned forward, their various sensory organs focused on the screen. This is your entire solution? Dean Xylos asked. Yes, Ji-ho said. It combines Earth's functional programming approach with galactic quantum syntax. He ran the program. This time there was no crash. The simulation ran smoothly, showing quantum particles moving across multiple dimensions, all perfectly tracked by his algorithm. "Extraordinary," Dean Xylos said when the demonstration finished. "Please explain your methodology." Jiho took a deep breath and began to explain. He talked about Earth's early computers and their limitations. He explained how human programmers had developed elegant solutions out of necessity. "Our early computers were so weak that we couldn't use brute force approaches," he said. "We had to find patterns and shortcuts. One technique was recursive programming, solving complex problems by breaking them into smaller versions of the same problem." He showed how his solution treated the entire quantum system as a single mathematical function, rather than tracking each particle separately. "Different doesn't mean worse," Jiho concluded. "Sometimes limitations push us to find better solutions." When he finished, the hall was quiet. Then Dean Xylos spoke. "Professor Zalthep, your assessment?" Zalthep stepped forward. "The solution is valid, and..." He hesitated. "Remarkable in its efficiency. I have verified that it uses less than 1% of the processing power required by conventional methods." A ripple of excitement passed through the audience. "The board recognizes the significance of this development," Dean Xylos announced. "Jiho Kim has demonstrated that diversity in problem-solving approaches benefits all species." As Jiho prepared to leave the stage, the doors at the back of the hall opened. A distinguished-looking human man entered, accompanied by Hansol Kang. "Dean Xylos," Hansol called out. "Dr. Minwoo Choi has arrived from Earth to witness this presentation." Jiho froze. Dr. Choi was a legend, one of humanity's pioneering quantum computer scientists. Dr. Choi approached the stage, smiling warmly at Jiho. "When I heard a human student had solved a galactic-level quantum problem with a single line of code, I had to see for myself." "Dr. Choi," Jiho said, struggling to find words. "It's an honor to meet you." "The honor is mine." Dr. Choi turned to the board. "What Jiho has done is combine two approaches that were developed separately on Earth. His solution resembles a theoretical model that my colleagues and I proposed in the 2060s, but we never implemented it because our hardware couldn't handle it." Dr. Choi studied Jiho's code. "This is brilliant adaptation. He's taken our old theory and made it work with advanced galactic computing systems." Dean Xylos stood. "Dr. Choi, your presence honors us. Would you join our discussion of the implications of this approach?" For the next hour, the board, Dr. Choi, and Professor Zalthep engaged in a detailed analysis of Jiho's solution. They identified applications far beyond the original assignment, from interstellar communications to quantum energy distribution. As the discussion continued, another human entered the hall. She wore the formal attire of Earth's diplomatic corps. "Ambassador Soo-Jin Yoon," Hansol announced quietly to Jiho, "Earth's representative to the Galactic Commonwealth." The ambassador listened to the discussion with great interest. When there was a break, she approached Jiho. "Your work has implications beyond academia," she told him. "The Commonwealth Communication Network has been looking for ways to improve quantum signal processing. Your approach could revolutionize interstellar communication." Jiho was stunned. "I just wanted to pass the class." The ambassador smiled. "Sometimes the smallest achievements have the largest impacts." At the end of the session, Dean Xylos made a formal announcement. "The academic board has decided to incorporate Jiho Kim's computational approach into GWOC's core curriculum. Additionally, we will establish a research group to explore applications of this method." She turned to Professor Zalthep. "Professor, you will lead this research group with Jiho Kim as your primary collaborator." Zalthep's skin patterns flickered, a sign of surprise. "As you wish, Dean." The professor approached Jiho after the meeting. "It seems we will be working together. I look forward to it," Jiho said honestly. Zalthep's three eyes blinked in sequence. Your solution has challenged my understanding of human computational abilities. Coming from Zalthep, this was a significant admission. 6 months later, Jiho stood in the same hall, now much more confident. Students from all species filled the room for the first lecture of a new course. Computational Diversity, Multi-Species. Approaches to Problem Solving. On the teacher's platform stood Professor Zalthep, with Jiho beside him as his assistant. "Welcome," Zalthep began. "Today we start a journey exploring how different evolutionary paths lead to different computational thinking." He displayed Jiho's famous one-line solution, now known throughout Guac as the human line. This example shows that the shortest path between 2 points is not always the one we expect. After class, Jiho returned to his room to find a message from his brother Junseo, who was now applying to Guac himself. "Your famous line of code is being taught in programming classes on Earth now," Junseo wrote. "They call it the Kim function. You're a legend, big brother." Jiho smiled. In his desk drawer was an official letter from Guac offering him a research position after graduation. Next to it was an invitation to present at the Galactic Science Academy. His computer pinged with a new message from Professor Zalthep, who had begun studying Earth's programming history with unexpected enthusiasm. "I have a new quantum challenge," the message read. "Perhaps your human perspective will find another elegant solution." Jiho laughed softly. 6 months ago, those words would have seemed impossible. Now they were simply a normal part of his day. As he looked out his window at the stars, he thought about how far he had come. One human, one line of code, and a new understanding between species. He opened his terminal and began to work on Zalthep's new challenge, his fingers moving confidently across the keyboard. Being human, he now understood, wasn't a limitation. It was his greatest strength.